Hey everyone, it's Vicky from She Sups. In today's video, I thought I would recap a little thing that I did last year in last September. So last September, I paddled 30 waterways of Sydney in 30 days. And yes, it was as mental as it sounds. The idea was that I wanted to spread the word about She Sups. I was just starting She Sups and I thought, hey, why don't I set myself a SUP challenge, try and get as many women involved as possible, raise awareness of getting women out on the water and just showing that we are so spoiled here in Sydney. There are so many amazing places to paddle. And yeah, it was an awesome success. So in today's vlog, I thought I would run through a few stories of what happened, have a little bit of a story time, I guess. And yeah, I had quite a few unusual experiences, let's put it that way. I also want to talk about this photo, which I'm gonna enter here somewhere. So this photo is of me at sunrise on the final day of the expedition, paddling by the Sydney Harbour Bridge. Now, this photo has obviously got a lot of interest. A lot of people want to know, how can I paddle there? How can I get a selfie with the Harbour Bridge? So stay tuned. The questions are going to be answered in this vlog. So yeah, I'm going to answer that a little bit later on. One of the things that everyone always asks me is, how did you come up with the 30 waterways? Well, the truth is I actually started with like 50 odd, and it took about 4 months of research, coming up with the different waterways, looking at Google, looking at forums, looking at books, looking at everything. And I was coming up with the locations, and then I researched each and every one like in detail. So I looked at the desired wind direction, how the location is affected by tides, are there taps and toilets at the launch site, what the route would be, and all of this kind of stuff. And so I did this for about 40 to 50 different waterways, and I documented this all in a spreadsheet. And yeah, so over the 30 days, I didn't actually set out to do, you know, day one I'd be in Watson's Bay and day two I'd be in Middle Harbour. Like, I had to take it day by day, because ultimately SUP is a sport which is so weather dependent. So I kind of had to go with the flow. And every morning I woke up and I would look at the weather forecast and look at the wind and the direction and all of this kind of stuff. And then from that, look at my spreadsheet and work out which locations I was going to do that day. So it was pretty crazy in terms of logistics. And then of course, lots of people ask me, you know, did you do literally one paddle a day for 30 days? And the answer is no, I couldn't unfortunately do that. That would have been so good if I could. But you know, weather, it changes, and there were some days where we had such crazy winds, it was just unsafe to paddle. So on those days, I took a rest day, and then I jammed in some paddles on other days. So some days I was paddling 2 or 3 locations on one day so that I could fit in the 30 in 30 days. One of the greatest things about the 30-day challenge was I kind of set out to kind of do it and kind of show women that it's possible to do it. But at the last minute, I kind of thought this would be so much more fun if there was more people involved. So I put something out on social media and said, hey guys, I'm going to be doing this. If you live near any of these waterways, and I listed a few waterways where I thought they're kind of like safe and doable for everyone. Yeah, so I said, if you are near any of these and you have a paddleboard or a kayak or some way to get out on the water, come and join me. And I couldn't believe my luck, but I had several women reach out to me, many of whom I'd never met before, and they reached out and they said, yeah, I'm interested, like tell me more. So I was so lucky that I was able to be joined by some awesome women on my journey. And then the She Sups Expedition went from being my journey to like the journey of several different women exploring Sydney's waterways. So that was one of the greatest results of the expedition. It's something that I didn't expect would happen, and I'm so grateful to all those women that joined me during the expedition, including many who are community members and new friends, and yes, so thank you. So as well as obviously doing the paddling, I then documented the whole journey on social media. And documenting it on social media was actually one of the most exhausting things, because if you can imagine, I would paddle a location and obviously film a lot of the stuff on my way with GoPro or my phone. And then I'd either upload it there and then after that paddle, or if I had a narrow wind window, so the wind was going to pick up later that afternoon, I'd then have to jump in the car and head to the next location, paddle again, and then I'd get home after my day's paddling, and all I'd want to do was go to sleep and eat some food. And then I had to kind of stay up for another couple of hours to build an Instagram story or a Facebook story around that paddle, that location that I did that day. And it was so exhausting, but it was really, really important for me to share the journey with everyone who was following along. Sharing the journey was what it was all about, and encouraging people and inspiring people. And so I'm so glad I did it. But yes, that was probably one of the hardest things of the expedition. Now, there were a lot of elements of the expedition that were quite private and personal to me that I didn't necessarily want to share right there and then on social media. And because I wanted to show, you know, I wanted to inspire and I wanted to encourage people to get out on the water, there were some, you know, bad things or negative things that happened that I didn't necessarily want to show immediately. But I wanted to remember it for myself. So as well as documenting on social, I then tried to write a journal every day of the expedition. And that was more for me. It was more to remember all the different journeys I went on, all the different people I met on the way. And what's really fun now is I look back at it. And one thing I ended up doing, which is completely random, but it's worked out so well, is, you know how on Friends, the TV show, they have all of their episodes are the one where blah blah blah, the one where they go to Barbados, or the one where Joey does this. And I ended up naming each and every paddle in that way. And so I named them, and now I look at those names and I remember all these amazing memories. So I've got a list here of some of the ones that I did. And so there's the one with the coffee boat. And this was actually the first paddle I did on the first day. I was lucky enough to be joined by my friend Emily. We were paddling in Middle Harbour just from Clontarf Beach. And we had been an hour into the paddle and Emily goes, "Hey, do you want a coffee?" And I kind of was like, yeah, what do you mean? And there was a coffee boat, this boat run by this guy Gary. He brings coffees to all the boats in the harbour, and so we just paddled over to him. Luckily Emily brought her debit card in her dry bag, and we ordered, you know, your normal barista coffee from our paddleboards, and ordered from Gary. I said to him, you know, I bet this is the first time that you've served a paddleboarder. And he was like, no, actually, I served one last week. Thank you. So it seems like it's the thing to do. So if you're ever paddling in Middle Harbour in Sydney, keep an eye out for Gary and his coffee boat. There's the one with the mist. That was a really cool experience, and I'm so grateful to Suzanne, who joined me on that paddle, for trusting in me, because she'd never met me before. I don't think she'd even paddled before. Suzanne was someone that had reached out and said, yeah, I'd be keen to join you, and she was new to Sydney. And so I picked her up and I took her off to this location in the national park here in Sydney. It was Ku-ring-gai National Park, I think. We get to the launch site and it's just like, it's like a scene from Pirates of the Caribbean. It's so misty and spooky and you can't even see the water. And so I say to her, like, yeah, we're going out there. You can't actually see it, but we're gonna go there. And I said we'd give it 10 minutes or so for the mist to clear, and thankfully it did start to clear, and we just went out just as the mist was clearing and it was just lifting off the water, and it was so magical. I'm so grateful to Suzanne for trusting me in that moment, and it ended up being a beautifully blue sky, clear morning. But yeah, it was really spooky with that mist. There's the one where I was attacked by seagulls. Now, this happened quite a few times. Note for those who go out paddling in Sydney or similar areas, I guess, during September, October time, that is nesting time for the seagulls. And they tend to nest on the moored boats around the harbour. And so of course, if you're paddling amongst the moored boats, they are gonna swoop you. And they all talk, at least the ones I experienced are all talk, and they don't actually like touch you, but it's pretty intimidating when you're being dive bombed by a seagull, and they're just relentless, like they just won't stop. Yeah, there was one particular day up in Pittwater where I was just surrounded and constantly getting dive bombed by these seagulls. Yeah, that was pretty memorable and also a pretty regular experience for me on these paddles. There is the one, oh, I loved this one. The one where I danced solo in the valley. So it was really difficult, you know, I'm only human and I have good days and bad days, and yes, I am so grateful, I am so lucky to be able to, you know, run She SUPs as my job, and well, I have a few other jobs, but I get to paddleboard heaps for work, and I get to be outside and all of this kind of stuff, which is so amazing, and I'm so grateful for this life that I have. But some days, you know, are just down days, and some days are a challenge, and I do suffer with anxiety, and so sometimes these things sneak up on you. And this one day in the expedition, it really snuck up on me. I was in the most beautiful location in Barara Valley, and I was just feeling low that day, like really struggling, and I was trying to kind of say to myself, you know, look where you are, it's so amazing, it's so beautiful, you're so lucky to be here. And I just couldn't get myself out of the funk. And so what do you do when you're feeling like that? You put on Taylor Swift. And so I decided, I was in the middle of this valley, there was no one around, and so I just put on a bit of Taylor, a bit of Shake It Off, and I turned it up loud on my phone, and I just started shaking and dancing on my SUP. And of course it brought a smile to my face, and it made me laugh, and it made me embarrassed, and then I was like, no, there's no one around, like I should just shake more. And so I was just like dancing on my SUP, and yeah, it was so good. It like made my day and made me feel so much better. Yeah, I think it's okay to have those down days and just find something that picks you back up, makes you smile, makes you laugh. Oh, laughter, I love it. And yeah, for me, dancing on my SUP, that's my medicine. Okie dokie, what else do I have here? One with the, I think this was the one with the horse whisperer and the weird drunk on a boat. So this is another one where I was joined by my friend Jane. And Jane and I don't think we had met actually we've met maybe once previous to this, and now we're like really good friends, so I really love Jane. And so we went to a place called Waterways in Sydney. We had the most beautiful paddle, and there were these horses right by the water. Of course, Jane talks to them. And so I named her the horse whisperer. So she's like coaxing these horses towards us. And I actually thought at one point that one of them was going to come into the water to come and see us. The element of the drunk was, there was a guy who was also paddling around. He was in like a little inflatable dinghy thing. So Jane, in her beautiful, warm, loving way, just says, you know, morning to him, and he kind of grunts something back or something. I can't really remember how it happened. Anyway, long story short, he ends up following us. Thankfully, you know, he was obviously drunk from the slurring of his words, and actually I think I saw a beer bottle or something in his hand. But yes, so he didn't actually catch up with us, but there was a chance that he could have done, and we didn't really know what we were doing, and so we just needed to paddle a bit fast to get away from him. Anyway, so there was that one with the drunk in the boat. This one was called The Accidental One, and the day I was too exhausted to speak. There were so many days I was so exhausted, but this one day I was trying to do an Instagram story or something, and I just couldn't get words out. I forgot what day it was. I forgot what number paddle I was on. I just could not form sentences, and I'd reached like a brick wall, and it was pretty tough. the one with the noisy hikers. This was really funny. So similar to me dancing in the middle of the valley, there was also, I was in Cowan Creek, which is in, again, the Ku-ring-gai Chase National Park in Sydney. And there were these ladies who were off on a hike, and they obviously didn't expect someone to be on the water because it's really quite remote down there. And so they were just talking la da la la la, really, really loud. I know I've done that so many times with my friend Bridget, and we've talked about boys and all this like embarrassing, intimate, private stuff. And we're just talking so loudly because we don't think anyone's around. And that's what these ladies were doing. And of course I was there hearing it all, and it was just making me laugh so much because they were talking about their husbands and their sons and all of this kind of gossip, and I just loved listening to them. So the one with the noisy hikers was definitely a highlight. So yeah, that was a few of my fun stories and memories from this paddle. And I'm very aware that I'm filming this at 5:15 in the evening and the sun is setting. So I might hurry things up a little bit and talk about that picture that everyone wants to know about. So this picture was taken on Main Harbour in Sydney, if you hadn't guessed, right by the Harbour Bridge. It was the last morning of the expedition and my final paddle of the expedition, and I really didn't know if it was going to happen because I wanted that shot and that paddle to mark the end of the expedition, but obviously, you know, the weather and all of these different factors were deciding when my last day would be and what paddles I did on certain days. And so yeah, I didn't know if it was going to happen at one point, but it did. I'm very fortunate that I actually work on Main Harbour. One of my part-time jobs is working as a kayak guide for an amazing company called Sydney by Kayak, and we take groups out every morning at sunrise to paddle under the Harbour Bridge. So I know that area like the back of my hand. So I know the ferry times off by heart. I know the rules around being around the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House. And so that is how I did that paddle. I've never actually revealed where I paddled from and how I got there because I don't believe that it's safe for just anyone to do it. I do recommend you go with someone who knows the area. And it looks tranquil and amazing during that photo, but it's kind of like Instagram versus reality, right? So we paddled out, we knew we wanted to get an epic shot by the Harbour Bridge, and we did. We're so lucky. We just like got there in time, and then after that it was like cameras away, drops to your knees, let's get out of here.
This is the most insane way to finish the expedition. What a cool waterway. And it's about to get really busy as the ferries are starting, which means we need to get off the water quick. Oh! How amazing!
As soon as the ferries start, it is a complete washing machine in the main harbour. You know, you have so much boat wake that's bouncing off the harbour walls and coming from so many different boats. You don't want to be in there as a slow moving paddleboarder because ferries have right of way over everyone, including paddleboarders. So yeah, we had to get out of there pretty fast, but it was an amazing experience and an amazing moment to capture and an amazing way to finish the expedition, the 30 days that I'd spent on Sydney's waters. I know so many people want that Harbour Bridge selfie. So what I would recommend and what I've taken a group of She Sups ladies to do before is to actually paddle out from the kind of Rose Bay, Double Bay area. Rose Bay is so beautifully protected and you can paddle out protected by the coastline and get a direct view of both the Opera House and the Harbour Bridge. That means that you can be at a safe distance, but you can get that fridge shot of you on a sup with the Harbour Bridge and the Opera House in the background. Perfect. I highly recommend if you do want that shot, head to Rose Bay or Double Bay, and that's going to be your best and safest way to get that shot. And if you are a paddler in Sydney and you'd like people to go with, because obviously it's much safer to be with others, I do run via She SUPs socials, and our social groups love going to Rose Bay, so we will regularly paddle there. So check out She SUPs community on Facebook. You just search She SUPs community, and make sure you're following us on Instagram at SheSups_, and we will post when we are next going to Rose Bay, and you can join us for that fridge shot of you and the Harbour Bridge. So that's a little summary before the sun goes down of my experience of paddling 30 waterways of Sydney in 30 days. Now, I have actually started documenting all of my experiences and all of the data that I collected about all these different waterways, and I have created the She SUPs SUP location guides. So the She SUPs SUP location guides are basically guides that you can take and you can utilize to paddle these waterways and retrace my steps. I'm going to be releasing those in volumes on the She SUPs website, so www.shesups.com.au. The first one is up there, it's already live, and I'm not sure when you're watching this, but I'm going to have different volumes, so each volume will have 5 to 6 waterways, and you can download each volume and go exploring Sydney. So check out the SUP location guides. Let me know, this has been a nice long video, so let me know if you've enjoyed watching this video. If you have any further questions, I will probably do another She SUPs Sydney Expedition blog, because there's just so many stories to tell and I could spend a whole hour on here. If you enjoyed this video and you've made it all the way through to the end, just put a little heart in the comments below to let me know you made it, and I will give you lots of love back. So thanks so much for listening and following along, and yeah, until next time, I'll see you soon. Bye.